Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. I am sharing some cards I made using another beautiful Love from Lizi mega pack. This is the Feeling Sentimental mega pack. It includes 32 sheets of 8x8 pattern paper, 5 sheets of specialty cardstock, and 4 sentiment steel dies. 2 of the pattern papers also include sentiment cut-aparts, so there are plenty of sentiments in this kit without needing to use any stamp sets. The colors are so lovely with lots of florals and forest animals. In addition to the mega pack, I am using a variety of coordinating cardstock from my craft room since I love using a lot of matted layers on my cards. For my first set of cards, I'm using Mojo Monday sketch number 449. For the backgrounds on both of these cards, I'm using some of the pearlescent cardstock that is included. So for this whole video, I don't use any additional specialty cardstock, just the 5 sheets that's included, and then of course lots of just solid cardstock as well. Since a lot of these papers have a very soft feminine look to them, I do like to soften up that look overall, so I did round the corners on just that pattern paper panel on the cards. And I don't want to use too many of these busy pattern papers, so for that solid strip I just chose to use some more of the black cardstock. But then just to add a little extra sparkle, I'm using some of the black glitter peel-offs. And rather than cut the full piece to go across the card, so it'd be like 4 inches, I'm using some of the little small pieces that I have left over. That way I can save on some of those peel-offs. Especially since you won't see that little piece that's missing a peel-offs because there's going to be a sentiment covering that portion up. So now before I add any of my sentiments, I'm going to go ahead and put that card front onto a card base. And I believe for all of the cards that I made in this video, I did leave just that thin border of the card base showing. So it's just that white border showing through. So now I'm just using a few of the cut-aparts. So I've already gone ahead and cut all of them out. Most of them I just fussy cut. A few of them I used either an oval or a circle die. And then I'm just going to mat them on some black cardstock and pop some of them up with some foam dimension. Because the little pink thinking of you sentiment is just a little bit on the smaller side, I did decide to add one more matted layer with the matching pink pearlescent paper. And then I'll add just that little banner in the upper left hand corner, and then just a final touch on the one card. I did use some of the Nouveau glitter drops. And I did make 2 of each of these cards. That's the one nice thing about using 8x8 paper is you can usually get 2 cards out of one sheet. So now on to the next set of cards using Freshly Made Sketches number 160. So again, I'm trying not to combine too many of these busy patterns together. So the background for both of these cards, I'm just using some solid cardstock. And although a lot of the papers in this kit are very feminine, I still think there's a little bit in there that will work perfectly for a masculine card. So I liked this orange paper. It has the orange polka dots, and then it's got a floral design, but it has some more just greenery instead, and it's on this really pretty pearlescent paper. So I think that would work really well for a masculine card just because it's not like overly floral. So now I'm going to add just a few peel-offs going across the middle of the card. I know it's not part of the sketch, but I do like to change up sketches all the time. So on this second card with the orange, I'm using some of the brand new peel-offs. This is the clear gold mirror peel-offs, and they're just beautiful. So I just put 2 different strips across the middle, and you can see I have an oval cut out of the background because I'm going to be using an oval later. So I always like to save on some cardstock if I can cut out the matted die cut out of the background. It just saves a lot. So let's go ahead and put those card fronts on to a card base, and then I am using just that thin little strip on the inside of the card just for some added decoration. So now I have my ovals cut out, And the background on the pink card has the green pearlescent paper, and then the other has the gold satin mirror. And so I've already gone and cut out a few of these really delicate thank you sentiments. So this is one of the dies that comes in the kit, and it's just beautiful. So it is very detailed, so I do suggest using some wax paper just so it doesn't get stuck inside of the die. But they do come out very easily. So I'm just using some liquid adhesive to glue those in place. And then of course another little banner, since I love to add my little banners. And then just a final touch, I did cut out these just tiny little circle punches. So it's like an 1/8 of an inch about, maybe a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to glue 3 of those at the bottom of the pink card. I'm just going to wipe away any of the extra glue. But then on the other card, I am using some of these Nuvo glitter drops. With this sketch design, I did end up with a total of 8 cards. Moving on to the third set of cards. So this is Mojo Monday sketch number 480. So again, I'm doing like a very feminine pink card and then one using a little bit more of the orange and the browns. And for most of the cards, I'm just using black cardstock to mat everything since it goes really well with the whole paper collection. So I'm putting this diagonal strip that's going to go behind some of the other elements, and I'm using some of this orange pearlescent paper, and I didn't want to use a full strip, so I just cut it in half and then just put one end on one side and one on the other. So very similar to what I'm doing now with the peel-offs, just saving on a little bit of the paper as well as the peel-offs. And since nobody's going to see underneath, like that big square element on the sketch, nobody's going to know that there's a little chunk missing out of the middle. So I'm just going to go ahead and layer those onto some black cardstock. And before I put those squares on, they definitely do look a little odd, kind of choppy, I guess. So I'll go ahead and put them on my card bases as well. And so now you can see that all of those gaps are covered up. So I have a more of the tone-on-tone design for that larger square element, and then the pattern paper, there's like the little deer on the one and the owls, is that rectangular piece that's more up front. Then I'm using the little scraps to put on the inside of the cards. And then I have more of these cut aparts all ready to go, a little owl and then this little bunny. And I did add some cardstock, just layering those in some of the black cardstock. I'm going to just pop that owl up just a little bit. And there's that little banner I love to use. And so I did do a total of 8 cards again with this card sketch. And since there are only 2 of each of the cut aparts, I did use 2 additional cut aparts for the rest of these cards, which you will see in my still photos here. Now on to the 4th set of cards. So this is Sweet Sunday sketch number 288. So I'm using a busier background paper this time. So it has all of these little creatures in sort of a floral wreath. And so I don't want to compete with that busy design too much. So for this banner strip going on the side, I'm just using more of a muted pattern paper. And this collection doesn't have a whole lot of tone-on-tone designs, but it does have the 2 polka dot papers. So I thought this pink one would work well. And then for this square piece, once again, I don't want to add another busier paper. I'm just going to use some solid cardstock, and then I just put some of the gold peel-offs on the top and the bottom just to add a little bit of sparkle. And then I'm using one of the sentiment dies. So this is the With Love. I used some of this mint green pearlescent paper and then just lined it with a black circle die behind just so that the letters would stand out. And then just a finishing touch, I'm using one of From Lizi's sequin mixes, and I only chose the gold out of this collection. And I love the shine that it has. I made a total of 4 cards using this sketch. The next sketch I use is Sketch Saturday number 393. So I'm sorry about the sketch being so small. I know that's hard to follow, but if you ever are interested in the measurements or seeing those sketches closer, I do share all of it over on my coordinating blog post, and that link is down in the description box. So for this card, for that strip that goes all the way across the middle, I'm actually using some ribbon, and this is from one of From Lizi's previous kits. I like to keep any of those spare pieces and use them in my mega pack videos. So I just attached that using some score tape, and now just to add a little more sparkle, I'm using some more of those clear gold mirror peel-offs. So again, I'm just cutting smaller pieces. I'm not going to use a whole piece going all the way across, just because you're not going to see that middle. It's going to be covered up by some of the other pattern papers. And then I also use a piece of score tape to hold the ends of the ribbon behind that paper. And then I'll just attach all of that onto the black matted layer. So again, since I'm using a busier pattern paper for the background, I don't want to use another busy pattern paper, so I'm using some of the polka dots. I really made sure to stretch this polka dot paper as far as I could. So I'm just putting that as that rectangular piece, add my little strip of the pattern paper on the inside of the card, and then put my card front onto the card base. And then I am changing this sketch up a bit. Instead of adding those 3 rectangular boxes, I'm using one of these longer sentiment cut-aparts that's included. So I just matted both of those on some black cardstock, and then use some of the specialty cardstock for those little banners. And then I'm just going to add a few little gems and pearls right below that rectangular box. And these are from previous From Lizi kits. So like I said, I like to hang on to them because you never know when they're just going to be perfect with the next project you're working on. And these are self-adhesive, but I do like to use some additional adhesive just to make sure they stay put. So I made a total of 4 cards using this sketch. For the next set of cards, I'm using MFT sketch number 249. And for this set, I'm actually rotating that sketch horizontally. So for the sentiment, I'm going to be using the largest die sentiment that's included. So it's this happy birthday it's probably about 2 by 3 inches. And so I decided this sketch would be perfect since I really want that sentiment to kind of be the main focus. So I'm just using some of these little softer pattern papers for the background and then matting them in some cardstock. I have like a burgundy for the one with the birds, and then just this bright pink to go with these lovely florals. And of course I have to add some peel-offs. I'm using the clear iridescent glitter peel-offs on this pink card, and then just some gold peel-offs on the one with the birds. So I think this second card, this one with the birds, definitely has more of an adult feel, whereas the other seems to be a little more kiddish with just the really bright colors. And now just go ahead and put that card front onto a card base. And then I'll add my little pattern paper on the inside of both of the cards. I don't always have enough of that exact pattern, so sometimes I will substitute it with another one that's in the collection, since it still usually coordinates. So now I've already gone ahead and cut out both of those sentiment dies, and this is another one that's very intricate, so you might have to pop out all of those little tiny pieces. But using some wax paper makes it so much easier, and they're just beautiful, so it's definitely worth that little extra time. So So I'm just going to use some liquid adhesive to adhere that down, making sure to press it all over so it doesn't pop up anywhere. And I used some of the gold satin paper for the background on the bird card, and then just a lighter pink to go behind this brighter pink paper. So overall, I kept this card fairly simple, and I did make a total of 8 using this card sketch. The still photos always show a truer color to the papers versus the video, since I don't have all that reflection. Next, I decided to make a shaker card. So I'm using some of the black pearlescent paper for the main background. I used a stitched window die. Then I'll just add some ATG around that window and attach my acetate piece. Then I chose this nice pink sentiment cut apart to just really add some contrast against the black. It has congratulations on it with some of the little flowers beneath it. And then just to kind of anchor that sentiment in place, I'm using some of the black glitter peel-offs. So I'm doing the widest width in the center and then the 2 narrower widths around it. And then I'll be attaching that sentiment there. But first I'm going to go ahead and build up my shaker window. So I'm just going to use some of the foam dimensional tape. Took a big piece of it and folding it in half. That way I already have my double layer and I only have to cut it once. So I was going to make sure to put it all around that window so that none of the sequin mix is going to escape. And then I also don't want that whole card front to sag in any way, so I am going to cover basically that whole panel with some more of the double layered foam dimensional tape. So I still had like that little tiny edge on both sides of the card, so I'm just going to cut this really thin sliver of tape and then just add that as well. So behind the shaker window, I'm going to be using that striped paper. So I'm going to add my little anti-static powder, pull out one of the From Lizi sequin mixes using my little Nouveau spoon, and then I make a mistake. So I went and put adhesive on the back, which I should have flipped this over because I didn't want the other stripe panel. So then I go ahead and now I need to remove it, and all of those sequins are stuck to the ATG. I couldn't believe I did this while recording. So I did turn off the camera and pull off some more of those sequins to try to save them, and then I did cut another piece of paper. So now I'm just going to seal all of that in with some black cardstock, and then I'll put that whole panel onto a card base. So even though I messed that one part up, I saved it and it was just fine. And then just using some of the little pieces of cardstock left over and a little bit of the pearlescent paper, I cut out some small flowers and some little leaves, and I'm just adding them in that upper right hand corner. So no banners on this card this time. And then I just put a little bit of the Nouveau glitter drops in the center of those flowers. And I did make a total of 2 shaker cards. So now on to the next card sketch. So this is Operation Ride Home sketch number 218. This is one of my favorite sketches and I do use it quite often. It's just a perfect sketch to combine a few different pattern papers and then just like some solid cardstock and then just a nice little sentiment on there. I usually have the pattern paper that I really want to feature as that rectangular element, and then just more of a tone-on-tone design for the background. Instead of using some more of the black cardstock to mat these wider strips on the card, I decided to use some of the black glitter peel-offs. Since that bottom piece is going to show completely, I did use a full peel-off rather than cut it. But since this top one, you're going to lose probably 2/3 of it, I'm just using some of the little pieces of the peel-offs instead. I also decided to round just one corner on the card, just that upper right hand corner, just to add a little different look to the sketch. So I'm just going to add all of that on to the black cardstock. And then I'll add that onto my card base. So I also had around the corner there, although you could leave it straight and that would even give it another look to the card, but I did decide to go ahead and round it instead. So I'm just going to add that pattern paper strip to the inside of the card. And now for the sentiments, I have one, I'm going to use the congratulations die that's included in the kit, but this pink card with the little bunny, I decided to use the With Love stamp that came in the February kit. Because it just seemed like it was more of a love card because the bunny has the little flowers that are almost in the shape of a heart. So it just seemed to go a little better with the pattern papers. And then just to go along with the love theme on the pink card, I did cut out just a small pink heart just to add right next to the sentiment. And then instead of using brads or any bling, I just cut out some of the really small circles to add for that extra element on the card. And then I'll just add some liquid adhesive to the back of that die. And then I used some of the gold mirror paper for that banner. And I made a total of 4 cards using this sketch. So now on to the next card sketch. This is Mojo Monday sketch number 508. And I really love all the different elements that are included on this sketch. But you do have to be careful if you have too many of those busy papers, because it can get a little cluttered looking on a sketch when you have all of those different little pieces. So it's always nice to add in just some of this solid cardstock, and then it makes it even better if you have some of this beautiful specialty paper like the satin paper or this pearlescent paper. So I'm going to be using some more of these sentiment cut-aparts, and this pink design was the only one that didn't actually include a sentiment on it, unless it had like an image instead. So I did use one of From Lizi's previous stamp sets. This was from the February kit. And sentiments like Just Because are so perfect because you can use them for almost any occasion. Since the background on this orange card was definitely a little more tone on tone, I did use a busier pattern paper for this banner that goes across the middle of the card. And since most of it is covered up by this floral pattern, it doesn't look too busy on the card overall. And then using just this solid cardstock for that thin strip, I think it sort of anchors that sentiment cut apart onto the card. Plus it adds just a little bit of separation between that sentiment box and then the pattern paper behind it. And then just a finishing touch on both of the cards, I'm going to use some more of this sequin mix. So I believe this is the pink champagne From Lizi sequin mix. And I like it because it has some pinks and then a little bit of like a clear or iridescent as well as some golds. So it matched really nicely with this mega pack collection. So I did end up making 2 of each of the designs, so a total of 4 cards using this sketch. So now I'm on to the final card sketch using this mega pack. So this is Mojo Monday sketch number 191. I am changing this sketch up just a little bit. I'm not using that smaller rectangular piece over the pattern paper. I decided I'm going to have that pattern paper as more of the focal point along with the sentiment. So for the background, I'm just using this soft peach color. And this is just a solid cardstock that I already had. And I used some pink cardstock as well as the black cardstock for this banner that goes along the edge of that pattern paper. And for the sentiments, I'm using some more of the cut-aparts. So this kit has enough for 32 different sentiments or images with all of the cut aparts that are included. So I'm going to layer both of those on some cardstock. And the little bunny, it's not quite a circle, it's more of an oval. So I didn't have a die that matched it perfectly. So I did end up doing a fussy cut all the way around it. And then I just put it on some of that black pearlescent paper. And then for this deer, I just used a little brad that I had in my stash. The pink gem on that brad just matched perfectly with the pattern paper. So I love when I can find something that's been sitting around in my craft room for so many years, and then I can find a use for it. So now just for a little final embellishment, I'm going to put some little stitched circles on the one card and then just the little banner on the other. And then I decided at the last minute to add a sentiment right below the deer. So this is definitely something you should do before you put it on your card, but it ended up working out just fine. So I did make a total of 7 cards using this sketch. And if you didn't catch it, the sentiment is another one of Love from Lizi's stamp sets. I believe it was in the January kit. And I will include links to all of the products that I used in this video in the description box below. So here is a quick recap of all of the cards I made using Love from Lizi's Feeling Sentimental Mega Pack. I did make a total of 53 cards, and I did not actually use up the entire mega pack. I have a few sheets left over and some scraps, but I decided to just do 10 designs this time and just see what I would come up with. So this was a lot of fun, and I love the colors so much in this collection. Leave a comment below letting me know which card was your favorite. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, and don't forget to hit that like button. I always appreciate the support. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.